So here I am again with another cartoon video. Even though I am trying to distance myself from these type of videos, I'm not going to completely go away from cartoons, but I am trying to diversify the topics on this channel. And recently I saw a clip of the new Proud Family reboot that went viral, and I figured that's actually a good topic to talk about, because it seems no one has a sensible opinion on this thing. Especially since the Proud Family was something I really enjoyed watching as a kid. Now, it wasn't one of my super favorite shows growing up, but I really did like it, and I think the original still holds up today. However, if you've seen my videos, you know I'm not the biggest fan of reboots in general. Fewer and fewer new IPs are created nowadays, and especially by Disney. The Proud Family, to me, was a nice little show from the 2000s, and not really something I thought needed to be rebooted. Generally, when I think of something that needs to be rebooted, it's something that was cut short that didn't get enough time to shine. The Proud Family does not fit this description. The Proud Family got 52 episodes and a movie, and aired over the span of about 4 years. And in addition, episodes were aired in reruns for a while after their show ended. To me, something that needs to be rebooted is a show like Clone High, that only got one short season in its original run, and didn't completely finish. Disney seems a little too reboot happy these days, and not just with their shows, but also with their live-action remakes of animated movies, which were pretty much exclusively worse than the originals in every way. It got to the point that I kind of forgot the Proud Family was even being rebooted, until I saw this same 2-minute clip being passed around the internet. And based on the content within, I knew it was going to be polarizing before I even got through the whole thing. I won't be commenting much on the episode it comes from because I don't think that it's that big of a deal. Pretty much the rest of the show is harmless and doesn't put as much of a thorn in people's side. After all, I think most of the people that are upset about this clip or the reaction to it have not seen a single second of this show outside that 1 minute and 44 seconds. So to be on a level playing field, that's the only part of the video that I'm going to majorly analyze. And also, I'm not going to use the W word at any point in this video, because most of the people that use that word to describe stuff like this are very reductive and don't have much of a stance besides the fact that it disagrees with their worldview, so they don't like it. I'm not interested in engaging with any culture wars. I'm only trying to analyze this clip as what it is, and why people either like it or don't like it. On this channel, I try to be a bit more objective and give a more nuanced point of view. So the main point of contention with this video is the mantra that's repeated throughout, and the rest of the video just sort of hangs off of it like meat on a bone.
This country was built on slavery, which means slaves built this country.
Right off the bat, they just hit us with an over-exaggeration. The main problem with this is that it's just simply not true. And that's the problem with a lot of these progressive slogans and what have you. Things like this, or ACAB, or I hate all men, are communicating one idea that sounds objectionable in some way, and then when the person is asked to defend this idea further, they say, obviously I didn't mean it literally, because optically it does look bad at that point. Which begs the question, why even say it at all? Why not just communicate what your beliefs actually are instead of oversimplifying them to the point where they become unpalatable to most sensible people? Slaves built this country is an entirely indefensible position. I guess slaves were integral to the economy of the South, thus driving their continuation of the practice doesn't roll off the tongue the same way this blatant falsehood does. Obviously the country they're referring to is the US, which is a pretty difficult country to say was built by any one group of people. For certain countries, maybe you could argue they were built on a certain group of people. Sure, you could say Norway was built by Norwegians, Turkey by the Turkish, etc. And honestly, if you want an example of a country that was built by slaves, Haiti would actually fit that description certainly more than the US. The whole gimmick of the US is that it's so large and diverse that you can't tell the story of the US by leaving out one group of people. But they've decided to leave out all except one, and you can't do that. Not without being inaccurate anyway. Now, this isn't to downplay the atrocities committed during slavery. Obviously, it's a black mark in this country's history, but when you pretend that it's the only one, or it's what this country was built on, and the entire national identity is based on it, that's when it becomes objectionable. This isn't an ideological gripe, it's a factual one. And unless you want to misrepresent historical facts, you can't afford to have that happen. Sure, there are some people who only look at this clip out of context and form the negative opinion. But when people do the same just with a positive opinion, what are you really doing? At that point, the mask is off. You only seem to like this thing because of the fact that it angers people you don't like, which is far more nefarious. Don't tell me it doesn't happen. I know people overreact to this thing, and while sure it's bad, it's not for the reasons people think. If they really wanted to go out of their way to educate people, I don't have a problem with that. Hell, the original show did that at times. But do I think that's what they were trying to do? No. There's some factual lapses and even contradictory logic at points. But do I think this is the anti-white propaganda some people label this as? No. If anything, it's a misleading ideological moment that wasn't proofread very well. And there's even some pop culture references shoehorned in for some reason. Seriously, if newer episodes of Family Guy have done the same jokes but better, you know it's a problem. I don't quite think this clip is as bad as it gets labeled as, but then again, the more stupid takes I see defending it, I'm not surprised that people are overreacting to this extent.
Oh, you mean like your feet?
But I do realize I'm criticizing without putting my money where my mouth is. How would I salvage this thing? Well, for one, I'd get rid of the condescending tone. The thing is structured as if we, the audience, did all these atrocities, or at least that people alive today are responsible in some way. If you really want to give a history lesson, give us a history lesson. Don't act as if things happening today are even as close to the same magnitude. When you do that, it seems like you're diminishing slavery, which seems to be the opposite of what was intended. The characters are still supposed to be somewhat likable, so this accusatory tone really doesn't help the case they're trying to present. Anyone can throw a bunch of witty slogans together, but when you're trying to be educational, the devil is in the details. Give us some examples of how slaves built the country if that's going to be your main line. They kind of take for granted that this is just some kind of self-evident fact, but it really isn't. We all recognize the magnitude this practice had on the history of the US. But instead of educating, which is what they act like they're doing, they instead try to give us this ideological drivel that makes the audience the enemy. And I know that's not the singular purpose of this. In the story, there are certain limitations to what they're doing, but it's clearly meant for the audience as much as the characters. And hey, maybe if they lean into that a little more, it could have actually been a good thing. But because they take the lazy route, it doesn't hit the same way, and instead just misdirects the entire point. And the factual wrongness just compounds this. So yeah, even if I agreed with the message 100%, I would still have a problem with this thing. Which is why I can kind of understand where the outrage is coming from, and I have a little less patience with people who actually want to try to defend this thing. So yeah, thanks for watching, and have a good one.